Hello and welcome back to the Golf Ireland podcast. I am Stephen Murphy, your co-host for this podcast. I'm joined by my lovely co-host Valerie Wheeler. We are here for another episode of all news Golf Ireland and everything going on. Another great interview coming up as well. But first we'll check in with Valerie. Valerie, how are you?
God, the sun is shining for a change. Do you know what? I got up this morning. I get up really early for work and the birds were singing. It was a lot brighter and I actually found like a little pep in my step going to work, which is normally there 5:45. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I'm sure the winter months getting up that early can be tough. So a bit of brightness and a bit of, I wouldn't say heat at that hour in the morning, but I'm sure it just makes a big difference. And it does. Look, I work an IT job. I'm at a desk most of the day, but even looking out at the sun is nice. It just makes a bit more of a. It's sort of looking like golfing weather soon, Valerie, which I'm very, very excited about. The clocks go forward soon as well, so that always keeps me happy. But anyway, how was your weekend? Did you get up to much? I'm sure you did. You're always busy at the weekends.
Oh, the usual, the J, we're just in the thick of all the madness of the league. So a few more weekends of that and we should be done now. But how was your weekend? Did you do anything exciting?
I didn't get golfing, unfortunately. I was hoping to, but I didn't, unfortunately. And then, yeah, look at watched the rugby Super Saturday. So I was in a pub watching that, which was fun. We won, which is always great. And Italy won, which was even, honestly, we nearly felt more excited about that than the Irish win. And then went to the local parade here in Ormore in Galway, where I live. So it was actually great. It was, it's an hour of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's nice to be. I said I'm not a native of here, so it's nice to sort of get involved in the local parade, which was fun, and it was a nice sunny day as well, so no complaints there. But yeah, nothing. 21-year-old me would have been very excited for the bank holiday weekend and gone mental, and 30-year-old me not so much. So it's nice to see that change. Did you get to a parade yourself?
No, I actually didn't. And I don't know the last time I've been to a parade. It must be like 20 years since I last actually stepped foot in a parade. I remember being in them when I was younger, like with the local GA club or Irish dancing up and down the street of Charleville. But that was the extent. I'd say my performance in the dancing was the last time I experienced a parade. They're like, never again, bring her back.
Yeah, well, I watched a bit of the Dublin one on TV, and there was a real lack of tractors. I noticed that as well in the Dublin City one. I mean, you can't have a parade without loads of tractors or old cars. That's my definition of a good parade. So, but yeah, it was good. Yeah, I actually we had this conversation. I probably was involved in one when I was younger, but it's nothing coming to mind. I definitely haven't been involved in one since I was in my teens, anyway. So maybe in the future years we might do a Golf Ireland float at some
Yes. Oh my
stage,
God.
and we'll
Amazing. I love that idea. I'd love it. Things that we would like to take part in or things that we've kind of been shoved into taking part in this weekend. Wait to hear what I'm after getting myself into. I don't know how, but Blessington GA have roped me into like this jungle, like I'm a celeb jungle contestant thing. So basically like creepy crawlies, like drinking horrible stuff, eating horrible things, snakes, like all the above things that I hate, but somehow I've been roped into this like GA fundraiser. So this will be this Saturday night. I could be crowned queen of the jungle though, so we'll have to wait till next week to figure out whether I am or not. I
That
doubt I will.
is that was equally exciting as horrifying to listen to. If anyone knows me, I have a massive phobia of snakes, and I'm always afraid to say that because then people will send you videos of snakes. So yeah, I wouldn't be doing that. So I tip my cap to you, Valerie, for doing that. I'm sure it's all for a good cause as well, which is always nice, right?
Yeah, look, the GA club, and if I am to win, let's say the money that's made for me then would go to this charity sponsor that I've chosen that night. So look, it'll be a bit of fun, and as you said, I'm not going to say what exactly I'm afraid of in case any of them are listening, and that they will throw that towards me. So at the moment, I love everything, I don't mind any of
Yeah.
those things.
Valerie's really afraid of chocolate. She's really afraid of marshmallows, gin and tonic probably as well at some
Puppies,
stage. So
puppies.
yeah, puppies, blankets, all these things she hates.
Yeah.
So make sure she gets loads of that. Can you promise me if you win, you'll wear your crown next week on the podcast?
Yes, 1,000,000%. I cannot wait to be queen for the day.
I know, it'd be nice. It would be, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be nice. But we have a guest this week. We are interviewing Sinead Bradbury, which we're very looking forward to. Do you want to give us a bit of backdrop on Sinead, Valerie?
Yeah, so she's a performance nutritionist, a lead performance, of course, at Galway GA. And I think it's really important because a lot of times athletes and even people that are not high performance athletes can get confused when it comes to nutrition and the importance of it. So I think for golfers, they spend a lot of time out on the course, maybe with the lack of food and nutrition in their system. So I'm really interested to chat to Sinead and hear how golfers and athletes can actually, better their nutrition when they're playing.
Absolutely. I think it's low hanging fruit for a lot of golfers. So excited to pick her brain on that. And yeah, we'll actually throw that over to interview now with Sinead Bradbury.
We are delighted to be joined on the Golf Ireland podcast this week by Sinead Bradbury, of course, performance nutritionist with over 15 years experience, owns Nutrition and Health Clinic in Ballybrit for private clients and a lead performance nutritionist at Galway GAA. Sinead, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here.
Sinead, first of all, for anyone that doesn't know, can you maybe give us a little line or two about what a performance nutritionist is?
Okay. Well, it's all in the title, Valerie, and what my main job is to support athletes to optimize their health, their well-being, their immune system, injury prevention, and of course performance. So that ties in an awful lot. You're looking at how they travel, fueling, hydrating, recovery. So it's not ever just, carbs and protein. It's often just making sure the athlete is well, strong, and enjoying what they're doing as well, and reaching their potential, hopefully, as well in their chosen sport. So yeah, predominantly since 2019 to 2023, I was working with Galway GAA, Galway footballers. We had a great journey there in 2022 to the All-Ireland final. We won the under-20s in 2020, and I'm currently with the Galway senior camogie team now. So that would be my main teamwork. Then there's a lot of individual athletes that I work with in terms of their performance, as well as corporate work. And I think I love transcending it from the sporting space into everyday life as well, Valerie, so that you're performing in your work, and you want to enjoy that work as well. So it's kind of, avoiding fatigue as well and making sure that you're excelling in what you're doing.
Is there a massive difference in being the nutritionist for a team rather than maybe just a one person? I obviously just the basic of a lot more people, but is it tougher then to get a plan for maybe a squad of 20 plus players?
Yeah, it's challenging, Stephen, and the game in GAA, they're moving towards professional nearly standards all of the time. So I can be working with a group of 40 players, and that generally is only one performance nutritionist in the squad. There can be a couple of strength and conditioning coaches, a couple of physios, but generally across the board there's generally one nutritionist. You can get support as well, but yeah, there's a lot of education. It depends on what level you enter the group at. When I entered the Galway senior footballers in 2019, they did need and require a lot of consistent support. And that's the joy then you see in them, that some of them are coming in from, the under-20s into the seniors, and you follow them then for 4 or 5 years along that, and you're there to support them. And yeah, what I really learned is that it's from them is like when they feel well, they play well as well. So it's generally just, it's, of course, it's high competition, but I think presence on the ground, you have to build trust with the players as well, Stephen. I would take great pride in doing that myself to make sure that I'm there. I'm not just there on game day. I'm there, on the Tuesdays and Thursdays in the bleak November months. And I think when players see that, they know you're in there for the long haul and for the right reasons. So yeah, and I enjoyed that process. Everybody working together in a group dynamic for one common goal. So yeah, it's different working with an individual as opposed to a team for sure.
I think for even someone like myself that's not a high performance athlete, Sinead, I think I sometimes struggle when it comes to nutrition because I don't know if I'm educated enough on all of this. The things that I learned probably would have been from home ec in school, and that is where it ended for me, And I think maybe a lot of us struggle when it comes to the educational side of nutrition.
Absolutely, Valerie, you're not alone there for sure. And that's what I try and do an awful lot of my work as well when I'm in companies or in groups or in secondary schools or wherever. I want to dispel the myths because there's so much out there, especially with TikTok. And what's, you really need to make sure you're getting the advice from evidence-based nutritionist and accredited nutritionist. Because again, even in secondary schools, they're taking maybe drink water and they're bringing it to new levels, drinking like 4 to 5 liters of water a day when there's no need to do that. They can hear about carbohydrates maybe, and they can hear that they're bad for them for some reason, and they might be cutting them out completely. And like even in sport, every opportunity I can as well, Valerie, I like to get across the mindset of making sure you're eating enough. So when you're performing at any level, particularly in sport, it's not just enough to eat healthy. You need to eat enough of the right types of food at the right times. So, making sure you're matching your intake to the intensity of training. And that's a huge part of my education with the athlete as well, that they're fueling enough, because there's a syndrome called relative energy deficiency in sport. It's RED-S. And it's if an athlete is not fueling enough, they can that can lead to injury. It can lead to low mood in girls, and in women it can lead to menstrual dysfunction. So there's like Sport Ireland, Golf Ireland, there's a lot coming out with trying to make sure that this isn't happening to athletes, that they're aware of the signs and symptoms, because it can play havoc with your well-being and your immunity.
You mentioned some interesting things there. Are you constantly learning, Sinead, as well? Because obviously players, as you said there, the thing that threw me off there is you can drink too much water. I never thought that was even a thing. I thought that, get as much water as possible. That's what we were always told growing up. I played GAA myself. But yet that seems to be not the case anymore. Is there always stuff that comes up every year that even surprises you?
100%. And we as accredited practitioners have to be at top of our game in terms of the research. Even delving into this, just to do a little bit of background research for the podcast, I was reading the literature on from 2023 on the most up to date for nutrition and golf. So it's changing all of the time, and particularly in the female athlete side of things, guys. And that's what I did my thesis. I went back and did a master's in sports and exercise nutrition in 2020. I did my thesis on training and competing during menstruation and the challenges that the female athletes face around that. So obviously that's kind of a current topic as well. But I had to really dig deep to make sure. It was so difficult to go back as a mature student and do it with my family and my own business and everything. But that topic really made me dig deep as well. So like the female athlete is so underrepresented as well. So I think in terms of sports research, that's quite fascinating, and the evolving approach to that as well.
You mentioned going back and getting knowledge about nutrition and golf. And of course, there'll be a lot of golfers listening to this podcast and a lot of people going, right, this is it. Ask her proper questions, lads, so that we know what to do before we go out on the golf course. So when it comes to a golfer, right, they could be 5-6 hours out on the golf course, not a bit of water, not a bit of food, Sinead. I mean, what should a golfer maybe be doing before they head out on the golf course, knowing that they might be this spell of a time before they have anything at all?
Well, first of all, Valerie, do they want to perform well on the golf course? I would ask them that question first. And if they do,
Okay.
there is definitely a process to improving your performance and managing yourself. So, like any athlete, I mean, it doesn't have to be high performance in an elite approach, but what you are looking for in performance nutrition is the before, the during, and the after. So you set yourself up to perform well, and you manage the hydration and the fueling in the game or on the course, and then you optimize recovery afterwards so that you can continue to perform well, not even just in sport, but in your everyday life. So yeah, the timing is everything. As you said, they can cover up to 10, maybe even 15 kilometers sometimes. The energy output as well can be between 900 and about 1500 calories in one round, depending on the time of year and temperatures and the type of golf course it is. So yeah, I would make sure that you set yourself up, and generally the pre-course meal or the pre-game meal would be about 2 to 4 hours before your first hole, I suppose. And that's generally the guidelines. And then sometimes people are nervous. I don't know if there is a competition nerves then as well. You want to make sure you get that right and time that right. So generally about 3 to 4 hours beforehand, you should be okay to intake. And then regular snacking is massively important. We know again from the research that is in, that from 2023 even, is that the blood glucose levels drop throughout. So if you're not eating anything, and we know that golf isn't just a physical game, it's a mental game as well in terms of concentration and focus. So if your blood glucose levels drop, then you're going to lose concentration and focus and decision making, and the same with hydration. So sweat losses can really impact your decision making and focus as well. So yeah, I would recommend about your main meal about 3 hours before, and snacking every 4 to 5 holes. And I would consider making sure that you have maybe a source of protein and carbohydrate. So it could be like even granola bars, energy balls, protein balls, fruit and nut mix, then Lucozade Sport maybe, or isotonic drink, and some water. Whatever you feel that would make you feel a little bit more nourished and energized, but it is important, especially in the back line.
No Haribo, so Sinead, is that what you're saying? When I took all these snacks, I didn't hear any Haribo in there. Did I
Well,
miss that?
actually, even having gone back to do the masters, one of the things I realized, okay, there is a place for these gels and jellies, and
Okay.
there actually is. But generally, it's in the high performance space when you are like, half time in a high competition, and it's very difficult to absorb anything. There's a space then to bypass the digestive system, go straight to the muscles, and that's why the gels and the jellies and the pastilles can be
Okay.
have a place. So yeah, I nearly promote someone having a couple of jellies the 12th to 13th hole than nothing at all. But obviously it's not a one hit wonder. It's nearly how you're setting yourself up before and during as well.
Yeah, if you could bring out like a steak sandwich, maybe, for example, is that something that? No, I'm joking.
Have that afterwards for your purpose.
Yeah. Is the problem, Sinead, is it the old school view that golf isn't a sport and golf isn't athletic? I think is that where the problem a lot of times stems for, especially the post or the pre Tiger Woods era where the golfers weren't always these super athletes and they were more like, people say, oh, sure, you only walk around and hit a ball every now and then. Whereas now you look at the modern game, especially the amateur game in Ireland, the men and the women, they're absolute super athletes. So has that view changed, you think, over the last couple of years that golf is not only just a sport, but quite an athletic sport?
I definitely see it. Even the GA players that I've worked with, they're top class athletes anyway, but they really enjoy their golf and they're competing as well with other like minded physical individuals and there's a lot of strength training going on in order to compete at that level as well. So they're noticing, just even from an everyday point of view, people are noticing the more strength, the more lean mass, the further the ball can go. And we know even from the research that the distance the ball travels is probably the biggest indicator of success. So and again, the research, which is very interesting, I really enjoyed delving into it there, is that the young elite athletes, junior athletes coming up now have the same power output, Stephen, as football players and elite athletes, track and field athletes. So the power output is necessary, for the power to hit the ball. So yeah, high lean mass, lower body fat is something that everybody is beginning to understand is going to be a huge advantage. And the disadvantage, what we know as well from the literature, is that a high body fat, it's the inability to withstand heat sensitivity. So you're more sensitive to the heat if you have a higher body fat. You're more prone to injury with a higher body fat, and you're more susceptible to fatigue. So they're all really important aspects if you want to perform at a high level in golf. So yeah, the trend is definitely on towards high lean mass and fitness.
It's so important that we know, and I suppose starting opening our eyes a bit to more talks on nutrition and stuff. Sinead, you mentioned females earlier on, and something I wanted to ask you about as well is nutrition around females, especially maybe around the time of their menstrual cycle, maybe around the time of their period, and
Yeah.
something that I personally would suffer from was cravings and nutrition around the time of then. I don't know how to control some of those sometimes, and I can't imagine what it's like for a golfer going through that, trying to perform as well and managing nutrition alongside a period.
Yeah, Valerie, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's absolutely a massive challenge. And what we do know is that in training, we'll say even maybe say outside of golf, that there's different phases of the cycle which will adapt well to training. So like generally phase one, you can make great gains physically and for hit sessions and for high intensity. Mid cycle, the strength training gains are really, really high. And then if you can kind of adapt to lower your intensity closer to your period, then that generally is helpful to the body. But they're not trying to do a one size fits all. It's very much track and map as well, Valerie, so that any individual female can get to know how their cycle is working and where their strength and gains can be made. But really honoring a little bit of the increase in carbohydrates that's needed pre-period as well. So we actually can crave more carbohydrates. Often we don't honor that and maybe increase rice and potatoes and pasta or vegetables and roasted vegetables. And if we don't do that and we don't maybe change how we're exercising a little bit, we crave the sugary foods. So if we kind of monitored our intensity of our training and upped the carbohydrates naturally, we wouldn't have be craving as much sugar. But certain supplements can be very helpful then as well, like a good multivitamin is always beneficial to everybody. I like Revive Active myself. It's very good for a 35-year-old age plus and very good for energy, very high in B vitamins. I think magnesium is an also important mineral as well, Valerie, for cramping and pain during the menstrual cycle. And vitamin D is always a must as well. It's great. Golfers probably getting enough, but Maybe they're outdoors a good bit, but vitamin D levels can be very low in this country, so it's another thing to think about.
Yeah,
God, we've a lot to go through, haven't we? It's terrible. Us women. Huh?
No, but I mean, we do have a tendency to look after everybody else
Yeah.
first, Valerie.
Yeah.
And I think if we start
True.
with ourselves, we have more to give. I have to do it consistently. Like, I have 3 children and my own business, so if I don't prioritize myself, I won't have any zest for what I do. So, yeah, I enjoy, as I mentioned, working with different brands and different companies,
Yeah.
and different athletes. So I don't want to be bringing my, you know, or less of myself to my job and to my work, and that's really my motivation behind wellness.
We touched on how to prepare for a round, Sinead. Is there anything in particular, especially after a round, especially if you have been walking for 4 or 5 hours, maybe during the summer when it's sunny for a week in Ireland, but maybe it is close to 20 degrees, you've been sweating a lot. That initial kind of half an hour to an hour after the round, is there certain, carbohydrates, certain like that you need to be hitting?
Yeah, good question as well, Stephen. Well, I would really consider thinking about an electrolyte as well. If you have sweated a lot and the temperatures are high, you can replace the salts lost through sweat by a good quality electrolyte, and that will help to the rehydration process. Generally, in sports nutrition, we call the hour after exertion the power hour. So it's a chance to increase the glycogen stores, which is like your energy source, and generally that's a carbohydrate method. And then we want to repair and rebuild the muscle as well, and that's protein. So a good protein to carbohydrate meal would be excellent. And like say a quarter of your plate carbohydrate and a quarter of your plate protein, and then maybe half your plate vegetables and salads. But again, if you're strength training and you're building your lean mass, protein intake is always really important. So we want a regular intake of protein to make sure that we're helping support the building of lean mass as well. It's called muscle protein synthesis. So it's that process in the body that is, intake of protein supports the building and repair of muscle. So yeah, I think the power hour, I think of that 1 hour rehydration. Even in general, in sports nutrition, we call it the 4 hours rest, recovery, rehydration, and repair and refuel. So try to hit those hours afterwards. And it's not just to help recovery from that, from around the golf or for competition. It's actually making sure that your mood and your well-being is balanced as well thereafter, so that you have energy for your normal life and that you're not totally fatigued. Because sometimes, obviously, around the golf, you might have to go off and do something else afterward as well. So we want to make sure that we're enjoying our sport and our hobbies, and not at the risk of energy and motivation for our everyday life.
You mentioned the likes of Revive being an amazing supplement. It is. I don't drink coffee and I'm on Revive every morning, and I do think it gives me that kick that I need, to be honest with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
other supplements that people maybe lean towards and go to would be like protein shakes and creatine and all these sort of things. And how, like, it's so new to a lot of people, but are they important to get to be using, or would you rather much be eating, like, for protein a load of chicken, or would a shake be just as good, or where are you when it comes to these sort of supplements?
Yeah, and again, it's fantastic to have the opportunity to speak up about this. And Stephen mentioned as well the emerging science behind nutrition as well, and most certainly sports supplements are in this arena as well. It's always food first. So you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself, and my ethos is you don't become an expert in vitamin and mineral content of certain foods, and you become an expert in yourself and how your body responds to certain stressors and nourishment and water, and hydration status. So you get to know your body really. What this is what this is all about in terms of sports nutrition. But yeah, they're called ergogenic aids, Valerie. So they're supplements that support performance, and so many of them are very well researched. And I have huge respect for many ergogenic aids. So yeah, there's a place for protein intake. A high performance athlete needs about 2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So it gets very technical in this world as well, of sports nutrition. And again, any athletes I'm working with need to know this and have an understanding of what this is about. And I translate and simplify it for most of the athletes that I work with as well. So 2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So if they're not able to get that, sometimes there's great support with taking high quality, maybe whey protein shake, just so they can hit the targets that they need to. Not necessarily that they'll have that instead of a dinner.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not able to do that. The same with creatine that you hear about. That is one of the most researched supplements on the market. And I have great respect for this supplement as well. They had very bad press in the past, but actually it's emerging as a really supportive for cognitive function as well. And it's been mentioned in the literature for golfers as well in terms of the cognitive support memory, concentration, and the power that's needed as well, that many may not kind of take into consideration when you're thinking about golf, but power is a big part of that. So creatine can help with those intermittent spurts that are needed for power. So there is a space for that. Caffeine is another big one as well, the anti-fatigue element and component. So again, the back nine, losing concentration, caffeine can block the fatigue receptors in the body, which means that, you know, it doesn't necessarily boost your energy, but it stops you from feeling tired. So caffeine is a big one as well when it comes to elite golfers, and I think it's 70% of mostly athletes will be using caffeine as well to support performance. So yeah, but again, the message is always is this is supportive.
Okay.
There's a big list of them. It's food first, but it's also make sure that they're the right types of ones and that you have education around it as well.
Yeah, you mentioned caffeine because people don't view caffeine as a supplement; they just view it as a nice drink in the morning to wake themselves up. But then you look at I follow the Irish rugby team on social medias and the even the provincial teams. They drink coffee, probably a lot of coffee every morning. You can see it; they're all very skilled now at their latte art and everything. They're very into that. So that is again, it's something that people. I suppose my question to you, Sinead, before we wrap up here is, how do people avoid the misinformation, and how do they keep up to date with modern research in nutrition? Is it going to someone like yourself who's qualified? Is there maybe is the better question, how do we avoid misinformation? Where do we stay away from to stay away from this, as I said, the misinformation?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Stephen, as well. Very important. The Sports and Exercise Nutrition Register, SCNR, is a register for accredited sports nutritionists. That's the best place to start if you're looking for someone to work with. The Dietitians Association of Ireland is another one. But I suppose everyone has to, for me, it all goes down to the journals and the sports journals and the literature there. So I think it's make sure that you ask the question and just be mindful of any, you know, so many people are putting out just because they have a beach bod, you know, they're not an expert on how to fuel and nourish a healthy athlete. So just be mindful yourself and look for the Sports and Exercise Nutrition Registered sports nutritionist.
It's been so insightful to have you on. Where can we find you? Where's your Instagram? What's your handle? Give it to our shout. People get
I'm
go.
Sinead Bradbury Nutrition on Instagram. So I'd be very happy to answer any questions anybody have after this if they're wondering about anything as well. So yeah, that's where you'll find me, Sinead Bradbury Nutrition.
Sinead, thank you so much for your time. You've really helped, I think, a lot of golfers, because it is an area where it's not been looked into enough for the average golfer. So we appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming on.
Most welcome. Thank you, guys.
And now we will head over to the news section of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Sinead Bradbury. We'll start with the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry played at the Players' Championship. Both Rory and Shane finished tied 19th, while Seamus Power was in tied 64th. A great event there at Sawgrass. On the LPGA, there was no event last week, but this week there is an event, the Fir Hills Seri Pack Championship. Leona Maguire and Stephanie Meadow both in the field there, so best of luck to Leona and Stephanie. On the DP World Tour, we have an event this week with both Shane Lowry and Tom McKibben playing. It's the Poor Singapore Classic, so best of luck to Shane and Tom. In the LET, the Ladies European Tour, two events in Australia for Lauren and Olivia. So, they are taking place from the 29th to the 31st of March and the 5th to the 7th of April. So best of luck to Lauren and Olivia. And then finally on the Challenge Tour, Conor Purcell finished tied 17th and Gary Hurley finished tied 22nd last week in the Delhi Challenge. This week we have another event in India with Gary Hurley, Alex Maguire and Conor Purcell playing, and John Murphy is also playing. He is there on a Golf Ireland invitation. So best of luck there to Gary, Alex, Conor and John this week in India. That wraps up this week's podcast for the Golf Ireland podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next week for the next week's episode.